Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. And if you're married, dating, or just thinking about falling in love, you might want to watch this one twice. Because I never thought one slow song could destroy 6 years of my life. But it did. It started 2 hours into the fundraising gala Cambria insisted we attend. I didn't want to go. I'd already had a brutal week at work. My dress shoes pinched like crazy, and I get anxious around rich people who use networking as a verb. But she said it was important. Said I was important, that I should be by her side when her company launched this big charity initiative. Right? Except I wasn't by her side. I was near the shrimp tower. Alone. Again. I'd already made 3 awkward laps around the venue like some lost coat check guy. Nobody noticed me. They barely even acknowledged I existed. One guy asked if I was parking cars. That should have been the first red flag. But what happened next? That was a billboard. The lights dimmed. A soft jazz version of At Last started playing, and everyone cheered like it was a cue for magic. I turned toward the sound. That's when I saw her. Cambria. In that emerald green dress. Smiling like it was the happiest night of her life. And not with me. She was dancing. No. Melting into the arms of this guy named Bryce. Her coworker. The one she always said was harmless. The one I caught texting her at midnight last month. And she said it was about event logistics. Logistics, my asterisk. His hand was on her lower back. Her face was tilted up toward his like she forgot air existed. And me? I just stood there, like a potted plant with a heart. She danced with him like I was invisible. And worse? I think she wanted me to see it. The worst part wasn't the dancing. It was the way she laughed, loud, carefree, like I wasn't even a memory. I waited for her to flinch, to look around and find my face. Nothing, not even a glance. So I left. No scene, no goodbye. I walked out with a full plate of untouched dessert in my hand and rage choking my throat. She didn't chase me, but 5 minutes later, my phone lit up with a message that made me stop in the middle of the parking lot. Ellwood. Where the hell are you? No, are you okay? No, I'm sorry. Just pure panic. That was the moment she realized I was gone, and that she might have just danced her way into a mistake too big to undo. I didn't reply to her message. I just stood there in the dimly lit parking garage, holding my keys, heart pounding like a warning bell. For a moment, I stared at the elevator door, half expecting it to open and for her to run out in those ridiculous heels, full of apologies. But it never happened. The text sat there glowing on my screen, and I just watched it fade like her promises had been doing for months. I got in my car and didn't start it. I just sat in silence, thinking about all the things I should have said but never did. About all the times I bit my tongue when I saw her turning into someone I couldn't recognize. Cambria used to ask me to write her love notes. Now she rolled her eyes if I so much as asked how her day went. And tonight, when I saw her in his arms, laughing like she hadn't laughed with me in years, it felt like I had died quietly, and no one noticed. My phone buzzed again. Ellwood. Seriously. Where did you go? People are asking. Come back before this becomes a thing. A thing? That's what I was to her now? An inconvenience? A possible disruption to her curated little evening? I'd never felt so stupid in my life. I wasn't just her husband tonight. I was her shadow. A background prop in a play she'd already recast. I finally started the car, drove aimlessly for 30 minutes, ended up in front of a 24-hour diner we used to go to during our first year together. I didn't go in. I just stared through the window at 2 teenagers sharing a slice of pie, laughing at something dumb and pure. My eyes stung, and I told myself it was just from the headlights. At 11:43 p.m. She called me. I didn't answer. I wanted her to sit in that silence, to feel what I felt on that dance floor. That's when I saw the notification. She posted a photo from the gala. A group shot. Her, Bryce, and a few others. Her caption? An unforgettable night with the best team ever. No mention of me. No tag. Just her flawless smile like nothing had cracked. But I had. And I wasn't going to pretend anymore. The second I walked out, I didn't just leave the party. I left the lie. I couldn't stop staring at that post. It was like she'd rewritten the night in real time, deleting me from the narrative entirely. My name, my presence, my absence, none of it mattered. She smiled for the camera like she hadn't shattered something fragile in me just hours earlier. I sat there gripping the steering wheel until my fingers ached. That smile didn't look like guilt. It looked like freedom. And that's when the panic set in. Was this the plan all along? I started remembering things differently. The way she'd flinched last week when I touched her shoulder. The unanswered "I love you" from 2 nights ago. The shift in her tone when she said "we'll talk later" that morning. How had I missed it? Or worse, had I just refused to see it? At 12:15 a.m., I finally drove home. Our apartment was dark, quiet. Her shoes were gone from the entryway. The green velvet dress she wore was crumpled on the back of the sofa like it had been flung there without a second thought. I stood in the doorway staring at it like it might answer the question burning in my chest. Was that dress for me? Or for him? My phone buzzed again. A voicemail this time. I played it on speaker, standing there in the kitchen surrounded by our silent furniture. "Ellwood, what are you doing? You embarrassed me tonight. Can we please talk like adults and not whatever this is?" I replayed the line 3 times. You embarrassed me. That's what she felt. Not regret. Not remorse. Just inconvenience. Like I'd ruined her party by choosing to bleed quietly instead of clapping on cue. That voicemail cracked something else open. I realized that for months, maybe longer, she hadn't been trying to love me anymore. She'd been managing me. Like I was a loose thread she kept tucking away before company came over. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closet where both our lives used to fit in harmony. Her side was half empty. I hadn't even noticed when it started thinning out. By 4 a.m., I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. She wanted a performance? She could keep dancing. But I was done playing the fool in her show. What came next was quiet, precise. I began packing a bag. Not to leave her. Not yet. But to vanish just long enough that she'd finally have to look around the room and notice I wasn't standing in the corner anymore. I didn't pack much. Just what I needed to feel like I had control over something. A change of clothes, my toothbrush, and my old leather-bound notebook where I used to write her poems before she started calling them too heavy. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay here. Not in the apartment that smelled like her perfume and the last traces of who I used to be when she loved me. The cab arrived at 5:17 a.m., headlights washing over the front steps like a stage light. I didn't leave a note. I left nothing. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt on that rooftop, the creeping dread of realizing someone you love is no longer looking for you. I checked into a cheap roadside motel 30 minutes out of town. The clerk didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any. Room 207 smelled like stale soap and microwave popcorn. But it was quiet. It was mine. By the time the sun rose, I had 8 missed calls and 3 voicemails from Cambria. They ranged from confused to annoyed. The last one was shorter than the rest. Just her voice, flat and clipped. If you think this little disappearing act is going to change anything, it's not. Call me when you're ready to talk like adults. Adults. That word again. She used it like a shield, as if her version of adulthood meant suppressing feelings and smiling through betrayal. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't even ready to feel. I was just beginning to process the truth I had buried beneath years of compromise. Cambria hadn't just drifted from me. She had replaced me emotionally long before Bryce ever put his hands on her back. Around noon, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, grainy, taken from behind a curtain or some hidden corner. It showed Cambria sitting across from Bryce at an outdoor cafe. His hand was on hers. She was crying. And for a moment, I felt something unexpected, relief. Not because she was in pain, but because it meant she knew I was gone. Someone had sent that photo on purpose. Someone who had been watching them. And that meant something was unraveling, not just in my marriage, but beyond it. I didn't know it yet, but the dance I walked out on was just the opening number. The real performance hadn't even started. I stared at the photo for nearly 10 minutes, zooming in even though it didn't help. It wasn't just the content that unsettled me. It was the angle. Whoever took it had a clear line of sight, almost too perfect, like they knew exactly what to capture. Bryce's hand covering hers, Cambria's head low, her hair partially shielding her face, and the unmistakable tremble of someone trying to keep it together in public. But there was something else, in the bottom corner of the frame, reflected in a cafe window, a figure, shadowy, watching. I hadn't told anyone I'd left. No dramatic social media flounce, no cryptic goodbye texts. So who knew where to find her? Who would go through the effort of sending me that? I scrolled back through the unknown number. There was only one other message, sent 2 minutes later. She's not who you think she is. Be careful. No name, no context, just that cold warning. And it landed harder than I wanted to admit. I felt like I was being pulled into something bigger than a broken marriage. A slow unease started to settle in my chest, something that whispered. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about manipulation, control, and secrets I hadn't even scratched the surface of yet. Later that day, I drove into town in a hoodie and ball cap like I was someone worth hiding. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to see for myself. Not Cambria, but her life without me in it. I parked a few blocks from her office, sat in the car like a cliché, and watched. She came out around 5:30, talking fast on her phone, her hands slicing the air like they always did when she was lying. Then he appeared. Bryce. They didn't kiss, but they didn't look distant either. She handed him something. An envelope? And then he walked away. Cambria stood there alone afterward, scanning the sidewalk like she felt someone watching. Then she looked right at my car. Not at me, just in my direction. I ducked without thinking, heart racing, like I'd just been caught stealing my own grief. Back at the motel, I couldn't shake the thought. What if I hadn't just lost her to another man? What if I'd been set up to walk away, to disappear quietly so they wouldn't have to shove me? And that message, she's not who you think she is, kept looping in my head, like a warning I hadn't yet earned the right to understand. I was no longer just a husband grieving his wife. I was a liability to someone, and I was finally starting to wonder what the hell Cambria was really hiding. The next morning, I couldn't pretend anymore that I was just hiding out from heartbreak. Someone out there wanted me to see something, and whether it was out of spite, warning, or some twisted attempt at help, I couldn't ignore it. That message, be careful, kept echoing like a drumbeat behind everything I did. I told myself I'd keep my distance, that I'd observe without interfering. But the truth was, I was already involved, emotionally tangled. And now I wasn't just unraveling my marriage. I was unraveling a conspiracy I didn't understand. At 9:06 a.m., the same unknown number sent me a new text. Check the mailbox at 312 Alder Lane. Behind the building. That wasn't random. Alder Lane was across town. A quiet row of old apartments with faded paint and half-dead hedges. I sat in my car for 20 minutes just staring at the address in Google Maps, wondering if I was about to step into something stupid. But I went anyway. I told myself I needed closure, not answers. That was a lie. I wanted blood. Or truth. I wasn't even sure which anymore. When I got there, I found a rusted mailbox labeled 2B, taped shut with yellowing masking tape. Inside was a plain manila envelope. No label. No name. I opened it on the hood of my car, heart pounding in my ears. Inside were printed screenshots, pages of them. Email threads between Cambria and someone named T.R. Going back nearly 10 months. At first, they looked like ordinary business chatter. Logistics, planning events, catering vendors. But then things got more personal. More coded. They referenced making room at the top, eliminating distractions, and even one line that said, "He doesn't ask questions. He'll fade if we keep it clean." That he. It was me. I knew it instantly. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning something. Something that required me to vanish. The last email was only a week old. Cambria had written, "Once the gala's done, it'll shift naturally. He'll leave, he always retreats under pressure. He's predictable." I sat there, breath caught in my throat like a trap had just snapped shut on my ribs. She hadn't just expected me to walk out. She'd counted on it. She'd choreographed the whole scene like a play she knew I wouldn't finish watching. I thought I had caught her dancing with another man. But that wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was how well she knew me, and how easily she weaponized that against me. I didn't sleep that night. The envelope with the emails sat on the motel nightstand like a bomb no one had defused. I read through every page over and over until the words blurred together. The more I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, the more obvious it became. This wasn't a coincidence. Cambria wanted me out of the picture, and she hadn't been working alone. I'd gone from background noise to a liability. And now, someone who knew the whole script was trying to pull me behind the curtain. At 6:14 a.m., I got another message from the same number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the park off Larkin Street. Noon. Come alone." Every part of me screamed this was reckless, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know who was behind this. I needed to look into the eyes of whoever had been watching Cambria, documenting her, tracking her with such precision. So I showed up. I sat on a damp bench beneath a willow tree, trying not to look as paranoid as I felt. The park was quiet, too quiet, and just when I started to believe no one would show, a voice behind me said my name. Ellwood. I turned around and saw her. Jasmine, Cambria's older sister. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Last I heard, she moved out of state after some falling out with their parents. Cambria never told me what happened, just that Jasmine was dramatic. She always said it with a smirk, like Jasmine was too sensitive to handle adult life. I used to believe her. Now I wasn't so sure. She sat beside me, eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses, like she had aged 10 years since I last saw her. "I'm the one who sent the messages," she said. "I've been following them for months." I couldn't speak. She reached into her coat and handed me a flash drive. "There's more. Videos, audio, stuff you need to see." I kept quiet because I didn't think you were strong enough to face it. But after you left the gala, I realized, maybe you're finally ready. I asked her the one question clawing at my throat. "Why are you doing this?" She looked straight ahead, lips tight. "Because I watched her ruin people before, and you're the last one I'll let her destroy." Her voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me. Jasmine wasn't exposing an affair. She was exposing a pattern, and I had only seen the tip of it. Back at the motel, I sat at the edge of the bed, flash drive trembling in my hands. I wanted to pretend I didn't already know what was on it, but Jasmine's face said enough. She'd seen Cambria's darkness up close, years before I ever met her. I thought she was bitter. Turns out, she was just ahead of me. When I finally opened the files, it felt like peeling off layers of my own denial. Security footage from work events, voicemail backups, even old screen recordings of private message threads. What Cambria had done to me wasn't an isolated betrayal. It was a strategy she'd used on others. She used vulnerability as a weapon, and I had handed her mine with both arms. But knowing the truth didn't break me, freed me. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped wondering if I could have done more, been more, loved harder. I finally saw that it had never been about me not being enough. It was about her never being honest. Jasmine and I spoke for hours that day. She told me about Cambria's last 2 relationships. How both men disappeared from town with barely a whisper after their reputations were quietly destroyed. Careers tanked. Families turned. All while Cambria kept dancing forward, untouchable. But this time someone had been watching. And this time someone was ready to talk. I hired a lawyer. Not for revenge, for protection. I gathered the evidence, documented everything, and when I finally met Cambria for coffee, her request, I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I smiled, calmly handed her an envelope. Inside, a printed copy of her own emails. The look on her face will stay with me forever. The first time I'd seen her panic. Not me. "I'm not here to fight," I told her. "I'm just here to say goodbye. You choreographed my exit. I just rewrote the ending." I walked away from that cafe with nothing in my hands, but more peace than I've felt in years. A week later, I moved into a small rental by the coast. I started journaling again. Franklin, our dog, is with me. He still perks up when he hears the elevator ding, but slowly, we're both healing. I don't know what happens next, but I know who I am again, and that's more than I had 6 months ago. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, how did you finally take your power back? Let us know in the comments below. This is the Reddit Confessions channel, where stories get real and healing begins with truth. If this story moved you, be sure to subscribe for more like it. And remember, not all endings are tragic. Some are just overdue.